Good morning and welcome back to the Opportunistic Trader for Friday. I'm happy it's Friday because I want to go to the beach and put my head in the sand and maybe do one of those things, where you bury the body. I'm not in a good way.
You
So
know, Larry, I'm sorry, but I'm in Connecticut and Pennsylvania, and I'm so sorry that you have to put your head in the sand. We have to put our head in gravel and dirty leaves. I mean, it's a
I
little
know.
colder
Well,
up
I'm
here.
not complaining about that, but I am complaining about my trading. And
Well, your
it's
your therapy is
interesting.
better than ours. Let's put it
You
that way.
know, it's funny. I was talking before we got on the air, and it's a really interesting point between, short-term trading, which is what I do, and longer-term trading or medium-term trading, which we really don't do too much unless, we have a good lead or we're really convicted. But, to really discuss it, every trade literally that we did that we got, you know, hammered on would now be a winner, and it's not even a day later. It's literally a day later, not even over a full trading day. So all the Nasdaq trades were big winners, which weren't winners, and the S&P trade was the two trades are now basically winning. So anyway, that's what they say. Timing is 9/10 of the law. It's really 10/10 of the law. We used discipline, unfortunately in this case, but that's what we do. And we're still in the crude trade. We're going to have to hedge that with an option. That trade is really not doing well, as well. But we'll have that on for the OPEC meeting and expect that market to bounce. It's actually, and it's funny, yes, CNBC was saying yesterday the market's in a bear market. And what's funny about it is if you really look at the high tick to where we are, we're down over 25% from the high, not 20. So we were in this bear market 3 days ago or whatever they're saying. But ironically, oil is flat on the year. With the rolls, it's probably down a little, but it's flat. Like if you're trading USO, it's actually it's up on the year a little bit, which is amazing. The market was up about 26 to 28% and gave back all of it. So, those are the takeaways, from that. Didn't do any trading yesterday, licking my wounds. I'm going to be laser focused today, and hopefully we'll be able to do a bunch of trades and it'll be active. It's funny, like when the volatility's high, there was a day, I don't know, I think it was about 2 or 3 weeks ago. It seems like 2 years ago, but I think we did like 15 trades in 4 hours. I mean, it was unbelievable. So sometimes you get that, and sometimes you get this, and our timing was off. I think we were positioned with a lot of other shorts. The computer, I guess, knows it. They tipped the scales and they ripped everybody and made everybody cover. Um, Interestingly enough, it looks like, away from my own trades and, all of that, it looks like the dollar catching another leg up. I see the euro down at like 113.30. So that looks, you know,
Yep.
that looks really weak. And like the dollar against the Canadian is back to 132. And, the dollar is strong as anything, which is interesting because the whole mantra last year was with Trump was that weak dollar, and now it's reversed, and you know, would expect the market to potentially trade heavy on that. Oil, there's really nothing to discuss. The thing is annihilated. Um, Gold looks like it got hit today back down to the lower end of the range. I'm sure you
Yep.
discussed that this
PPI got
morning.
hit. PPI got. Well, we're not going to get into gold other than to say PPI came. Gold was soft overnight. We got a potential signal lining up. PPI came out. The dollar rallied. Gold got slammed. This is all a gentleman named Powell's doing. The market is starting to realize that you have a Fed chair who's a man of his word.
Yeah, but what's interesting is the bond is actually higher, which is, maybe it's reacting a little to equities. I would doubt it. It's only down 14 handles, but why would the bond be up? today, especially with a much stronger inflationary number. So
Well,
these are questions we have to
I view
ask.
that as that's a good point. When you see an inflationary number, why wouldn't bonds sell off? And I take the view that I take with gold on that, Larry, and that is if bonds, if the number is inflationary, and people perceive the Fed chair to be ahead of the curve, then the curve will flatten. Like he's going to be more aggressive raising rates, which will squash inflation long term. That'll flatten the curve, kind of like with gold. Oh, an inflationary number comes out and gold goes down. Why? Because we know Powell's got his foot on the hawkish gas, or put it this way, he's taking away the punch bowl, whatever euphemism you want to do. But at least today, at least for the next couple of hours, the market thinks that the Fed is on top of it and they're going to continue with their QT. And so recession before inflation, I think is so what happens to stocks? Well, there's the wild card, but I think that's why you'll see a little rotation on term structure bonds. Oh, okay, he's going to raise rates again, so we're not really worried about long-term rates going up. He's going to squash inflation, and you see a little curve flattening. How long that lasts, you don't know, but it'll last until he has to do QE5 or whatever it is.
I don't know. I don't know if we're getting QE again so quickly, but
well, not QE, but I don't think you're going to see. I mean, we're going to see rate rises in an orderly manner until the market capitulates and does what it's supposed to do and become a little more fundamentally driven. But an external crisis that's bigger than any 10 or 15% correction is probably the only thing that'll make him stop the rate juggernaut that he's doing. So I agree with you. There won't be a QE, but just not having a QT for a week might be like a QE for these people that are looking for a reason to buy stocks.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think they need a reason. Market's up 4% for the year. It was down on the year. There's not a lot of trading days left. I kind of hope in a way that the market ends up on the year this year, because it'll be like the 10th up year in a row, and it really shouldn't have ended up this year, and it is. And it's funny, if you look at stocks overall, they're really not doing well. I mean, they're really not. Even these high flyers that went crazy are so far off their highs. I mean, let's go over it. I mean, Apple high is like 235. It's trading at 205 on a $10 uptick. So literally that came in, over 10 to 15%. Facebook down on the year at 148.46 and a half. Traded a high of the year in the 213 handle, maybe more. Okay. Netflix traded above 400. It broke 300. Google is nothing really to talk about. That's flat. Amazon traded over 2,000, traded down to 1,400, is somehow back at 1,700, and so on and so on. And Goldman doesn't look too good, at 230, not up. So I don't know where the money is. Must be these esoteric stocks that. Well,
it's not the S&P 500 anymore, Larry. It's the S&P 501. You just don't know what that other stock is, but it's up 3,000% this year. But you're just not allowed to know what the name of the stock is. It's somewhere out there.
I think like Disney creeped up $10 this year, 10, 15%. I mean, I don't really know, but I do know.
But yesterday you actually made a comment that is equally true as what you just said right now. Yesterday you said, we're down over X, blah, blah, but these stocks are still you picked the very narrow breadth of the market. You pointed out, like, look at these 2 or 3 stocks are still up 20 and 30% on the year. This is what's carrying the market. Everything else is not. So, you're making 2 statements that are completely true, but they seem like they should annihilate each other. I don't know what everything is doing up. I don't see anything really up. And yet there's like maybe 1 or 2 stocks that are still up for the year. So then you point out that Apple's up, why is it up so much for the year? Isn't Apple like up 20% for the year or something?
Yeah. Apple, I think, is up more, potentially.
Just a reflection of the lack of breadth in this market.
Well, no, all those stocks are up 20. I mean, more. Netflix is up like 60.
I have Apple up 24%. I have Netflix up 62%. Amazon up 48%. Microsoft up 31%.
There you go. That's the whole market. That's what,
Yep.
if you take those stocks out, the market's down 5 or 10. So, the bottom line is everybody's overweighted Apple. You know that. Everyone knows that. If this stock breaks down again, it's not going to be pretty. Everyone buys that stock on leverage.
Looking back at where we are year to date, because you just brought that up, S&P right now before today was up 4.98%. NASDAQ was up 9%. But you go back down now to Europe, it's almost like on this last rally up, it was once again the U.S. that outperformed because DAX is down 11% right now. FTSE's down 7.5%. So in a way, the spread continued to widen a little bit. And then even just going down into Asia, Shanghai's back to down 21.5. Hang Seng's down 15. Taiwan's down 7.5. The Kospi's down 15.5. So on this last move up, it was more U.S. led once again.
I mean,
Well,
I guess our markets are the safe haven for for other markets. It seems like. I mean, the Swiss National Bank just prints out. I mean, we joke, but
did you ever work for the Swiss
the
National
two trades
Bank?
out there that I want to point out, that BOIR market, BUOIR market, BUOY. One is the yen carry trade. It's the carry trade. We've had carry trades going on for years. And the yen carry trade is borrow in yen because interest rates are so low and throw it in stocks. And those stocks happen to be US. When that unwinds someday, that'll be a big deal. The other trade is, and it's not a trade per se, but it's a fiscal phenomena. European central banks are running out of things they can buy. They can't buy junk bonds for their balance sheet to prop up their market. So the Swiss National Bank is hitting Control P, printing out more currency, converting it to dollars, which makes the dollar stronger, and going out and buying Apple. I mean, central banks, we may be 100% invested in Apple, the three of us, let's say. All of our money is in Apple. Where are we going to put our money? We don't have to worry about that because the Swiss National Bank is going to print more money and buy it for us. That's to your point, Mike, about we continue to diverge from other global markets. I just thought that's worth pointing out.
Yeah, I was just questioning before if you actually ever worked for the Swiss National Bank.
No, I haven't, but I pay attention to them because they were actually, when we paid attention to them as metals traders, paid attention to them because even though they were off the gold standard, they still had like a virtual gold standard. Remember when the whole Maastricht Treaty, like Switzerland stayed out of it, they had their own currency. And then when they started buying stocks, when they started opening up their central bank to buying stocks, the first stocks they bought were like gold stocks. And I'm like, really? And then they bought things, gold stocks like silver wheat and things like that. And then they just started buying everything. And it was like, if you look at their holdings in Apple, it's pretty significant. And I don't think they're ever going to sell.
To comment on, to get back to one thing you were just referencing before, take us back a few months ago. I remember we were having conversations with Mark Fisher and a lot of other people about this, that earlier in the summer, the trade definitely was selling everything. When oil, when gold, when this was when gold was below 1,200 even, it's selling everything and buying U.S. equities is almost like the safety play because they needed somewhere to park assets since they were putting it into U.S. equities. And, it's interesting, looking at all those, the indices that I was just going over, once again, if you take out Apple, Netflix, Amazon, but really Apple, Amazon, Microsoft, those sort of names, that's what those global markets don't have working for them right now, and that's why their indices are down, 10 to 20%, whereas U.S. markets do have that holding up. It's been huge. Those are the big bellwethers, a huge performance, and that's what's holding things up. I saw GE's under $9. Larry was referencing different names. Banks are down on the year. I'm looking, Citibank's down 7.5%, Goldman Sachs is down 9%, Wells Fargo's down 10%, Caterpillar's down 16%. So it's, it is still, if you don't have the right portfolio, you're underperforming heavily this year.
But everybody indexes. So the bottom line is they don't have Apple. Individual people may if they're trading or whatever, but they just buy passive ETF S&P 500, and the S&P 500 is up on the year, and they're happy. So they weren't happy a week and a half ago, but they're happy today. So we'll see. But I'm looking at GE. My kids probably want to kill me because I have that in my portfolio long that I'm never selling. And GE is trading at $8.74. Yes, I said $8.74. I think
Amazing.
Witnessing the death of a company that went from making stuff to making financial instruments to cutting, I mean, their dividend. It's sad.
It was once the largest company in the entire world,
yeah.
Yep.
market cap wise.
And now
Yep.
it's not, I don't even think it's 80.
It's going to be
billion.
kicked out of the S&P 500.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's not. It's a piece of.
And they really have. If you're looking at them from a fundamental point of view, they've sold off a lot of their assets. I mean, I'm not calling them Sears, but it's kind of like when Sears was facing bankruptcy, what to do? They sold their brands, whatever Kenmore, Craftsman, or whatever they had that was a good brand within the own company. G doesn't have much left to get rid of, to get out of their, diversified businesses. It's sad, but I guess it's
So,
the way it is.
back to what's happening, yesterday's Fed decision, it seems like came and went. It was as boring as can be, but they basically, by saying nothing and reiterating, that they've continued to see high, strong unemployment and inflation move slightly higher. It sounds like they're still implying that they're hiking in December. So yields moved a touch higher yesterday. We're off a touch today, but then we just got this high PPI, which the market hasn't really reacted to a whole lot. But yields right now, the 2-year is 296, whereas the 30-year is 342. So the flatteners continued there. The dollar is, like Larry was mentioning before, we're trading 113.40 right now. I have the chart up on the right-hand side of year-to-date with the euro. We once touched below, I think twice we've traded through 113. The low on the year is about 112.80. So we're, right there. Pounds at 130. Dollar yen's just below 114 the figure. So once again, it's dollar strength, but not an aggressive move higher. But it's dollar strength, and then dollar mex is back at 220 back. So dollar's definitely picking up globally, just not as much in G10. So that's something to keep an eye on, and I think that's Vince, what you're referring to, and gold's on the low of the day here, down 12.5 at 12.5. Copper's down 1.5%. Now we're back below. We're at 269.5. We popped above 280 last week. That'll be watch.
Nat gas is up 3.5 today, breaking out.
Gas new
It's
high.
the best, dude.
366 right now.
Gas in the teens.
I believe that
gas
Apple
in the
is
teens.
making an offshore acquisition, and it is buying natural gas, and it's an LBO. So got to be long nat gas, right? I mean, just kidding, but you get the point.
I don't know though. It's funny. I think Adam Collins was saying that's the longest position out there, but it seems to be working really well.
Yeah.
So,
it's been a good week for the natural gas longs. It's been, if you look at the differentiation, nat gas is up. I don't have the exact number for the week, but it's probably about 15% or 14% for the week, whereas crude oil is down a few bucks for the week.
Oh, a few bucks.
I'd love to say that that's the rotation, but I'd let people like Bryn and Tracy discuss that. But I want, based on what you just said, to call that a rotation. But how can it be? I mean, if you're buying natural gas because of weather, which you may or may not be, then the crack should be the heat crack, and that oil should be blowing out. And it's not really. I think it might be closer to its peak than its trough. If the information I was given by, I think it was Bryn, plays out. Oil's, I have some charts I'm looking at, and oil is down an unprecedented. Larry, you made a comment that, seemed intuitive and off the cuff, and like, oil is down, it's ridiculous. I'm like, yeah, it is kind of ridiculous. How ridiculous is it? I have the note somewhere, but it's like 6 weeks. It hasn't been down. This is a complete hedge fund divestment. I think, although it's not active trading, I think our biases might want to start considering end of the year liquidation and reallocation of money coming in for next year, for the next big momentum plays.
Yeah.
Maybe allocation, fresh money comes in for for oil in after Thanksgiving or after
I
Christmas?
have no idea. I've been doing this a long time, and I always say this, so people that listen to me, especially if you get on here, but just know me for years, I always say this. I've never seen this before ever, but this oil move is, 77 down to 50, basically 59 is what, 18 points on top of 7. That's sick. That's approaching another $2. It'll be over 30%, So that's a move and a half. So, but again, these are commodities. So, people out there have to realize it's not an equity market. Equity market can never do that, only because you can't handle it, and you have, listen, when you're trading the market, you have, people that have inherent, I don't know the exact word, but just, they have to have the market up. So, there's a buyer at some level. They used to call it the plunge protection team or whatever. But overall, the bottom line is there's always a buyer. Like in these commodities, it's a natural resource. So, if people are stuck long this thing, they have to sell because they're producing. In a stock, it's the opposite. The reason why they're saying the market rallied over these days, which doesn't make sense, is the massive buybacks kick back in. So it's like every day Apple, it's the funniest thing. So let's say Apple starts the day. Apple, the company, buys X million shares a day. So you have an inherent buyer every day. Like in these commodities, it's almost the opposite in a way because you have a natural seller. Every day people are pumping oil out of the ground. So there's a natural seller. It's kind of like my thought in Bitcoin. Same thing. Like if you really think about it, I don't understand Bitcoin and, that well. And this, production of energy and them giving you free coins. It sounds like a video. It sounds like one of my son's video games at home. But
well, you just
Larry,
touched on it.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry to break in, but and we can come. I know you want to stay on Bitcoin, but John Hassinger, subscriber, and before you answer that, I have a comment to make about energy as well. Are you looking? Are you considering any option strategies today in the SPX? Is anything on your radar? Before you answer that, I want to answer my own question as given to me by Bryn. I made a comment just now about natural gas and crude. You would think blah, 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 weather related. And Bryn reminded me of something I was told years ago. Natural gas and crude actually have a loose negative correlation as a substitution effect, kind of like I think with coal as well. The thought being, quoting her, as crude prices go way down, production might slow, which takes some quote associated gas off the market, making there less nat gas. So if crude is used to produce nat gas and crude prices are down, nat gas prices may go up. I'm probably saying something backwards there, but
I have no
the question
idea.
by John, I think, is relevant.
Doesn't sound right. But again,
well, I might be mistranslating. But John's question, I think, is valid. Do you see anything? Where's the straddle
trying
today?
to get me off this Bitcoin thing, bro? The straddle is dirt cheap. The straddle is trading at about $16. So actually, it's about 17, 18. Not pricing in much. Vol is contained. We're down 15 handles, and vol is only basically 2%. The vol trade is really the interesting one. We could probably spend hours on this thing, but something is wrong with the structure in this vol. It did not protect them on the downside at all. And now the vol is getting hammered even more. And we could come in another 100 handles and have vol under 20. So that's going to be interesting. So we'll see. We'll see. We'll see there. But right now,
back to the most important market that is out there, of course, Bitcoin. Like you were just saying, how is this thing pinned to 6,500? I'm actually going to work on getting somebody on today talking about Bitcoin a little bit because, this is months now of like 3 months, 4 months of 6,500 after this thing being the most volatile thing. The CME, when it listed the product, literally was so scared about the volatility they couldn't even do it. And now it's, not even trading.
No, it doesn't trade. It's literally, I just peek at it. And then there's some divergences. Like it's weird. Like on my system, like there's 5 or 7 exchanges, and they're all different prices. I don't think it's liquid, but it's funny. The one that I guess they look at is this what is it? Bifinex or whatever. That's the highest price Bitcoin. Bitcoin is like 6,400, maybe a little bit lower, but it's been in a $200 range for, I don't know, 3 months.
3 or 4 months.
It hasn't moved at all.
Somebody's
So this
trying to keep it
something is
pinned.
rigged. I don't understand it. It's funny though, if you look at the valuation of the coin at 6,400, if it sits here for 3 more months, it'll have 110 trillion billion dollar market cap. Okay, because they're just creating coins every day. So listen, this whole thing makes no sense. I'm gonna tell you that I don't even understand it. I don't know how it'll ever be used for anything again. I've been wrong before, but it just the reason why it's 6,300 is because it got up to 19,000. If it never got to 19,000, we'd be basing it like 2,000. So again, though, I don't know. There's trading firms popping up day in and day out, and the volumes have diminished to literally nothing. I don't even think it trades much. I was looking at this Ripple, and the Ripple had like, I don't know, 30 or 40 million dollars worth of volume going through. So it's been dead there. It would be interesting to have someone on to really go over it. I know a lot of people went out. There's a company called Cumberland. Don Wilson, he's like the biggest in the market, but I don't even think there's a market anymore. I think that these guys, the market came crashing in and they're holding a bunch of coins and, trying to flip it out, but there's no volume. So anyway, that's my Bitcoin take, which is not, utterly professional.
I just sent 2 emails out. Hopefully we'll have somebody on later talking about it. We haven't really spoken about it a whole lot, and to tell you the truth, it's not that interesting, other than it was about a year ago right now when it really started to take off. But it's amazing, the way it's been for volatility right around 6,500. Hopefully we'll get somebody on with that. Later we're going to be speaking with Phil Flynn. He's going to give us the energy update. He has been long and wrong for a little while now.
What do they say?
But it'll be good to get his take. He's actually he said that he was speaking with a bunch of different traders, has some interesting information on that. So we're going to be speaking with him at 10:15.
I don't know if it's getting back to 75 anytime soon. That's all I'll say. I don't know where it's going from here. We're long it. We're hoping it's going higher, but that trade has been wiped out. So.
Mike Core made a comment about natural gas. Feb's trading 350. Just giving you an idea, the Feb 350 call has a 54 delta, and the 350 put has a 45 delta. That's a reflection depending on what model you're using. If you're using, not to get too wonky, if you're using a Cox-Ross-Rubenstein model, that the deltas will invert. If you're using a PDE model, that'll reference of call skew. Just doing that. Just shout out to Mike because he's sharing some, I think, cool information with subscribers.
We appreciate that for sure. Overall, looking for crude to bounce. It hasn't found the level. The S&P just bounced $3. It's making a new low. Came back.
So Larry, on S&P, what's your inclination if we were to bounce up to 2,800, or if we go down to 2,785? Next, are you more looking to sell rallies, buy dips?
No, I'd be a buyer lower and a seller higher. I don't expect a lot today, but again, I want to try to be nimble. I'm trying to recover. I'm gonna have to get back on the bike and put a trade on. So that'll happen probably right after the opening, and we'll go from there. I mean, I'm basically 5 losing trades in a row. Okay, I'm owning them. I'm not happy about it. I gotta come back here, and I think we will. I don't see anything on the equity front. Apple's down back to 205. It's probably it'll fluctuate back and forth, but it will trade below 200 again at some point. And oil's the mystifying one. Just crushed. And the thing is, really, I mean, it's funny. I was talking to Tracy. I think it was not. I think it was not last night, but the night before, and she was saying, "Oh, they're gonna draw." They're gonna draw 1 million barrels out of this OPEC meeting, and really, if they don't do anything, it's going to get really bad. Because now I guess it's in the market that they may do something. So if they don't do anything, it could get really bad. And, maybe if they do the million, we get a little bit of a relief rally. But I can't believe how beat down this thing is. It's actually pretty amazing that we're in a 50. It's got a 5 in front of it. It used to almost have an 8 in front of it a month ago. So big move. We'll be watching it. Other than that,
I just pulled up a chart. Everybody can see on the right-hand side, Yelp, stock Yelp. Tom was talking about that yesterday too, and it is a 30% mover. The straddle was looking for like a 12% move, and it's dropped 30% on weak guidance. And so that thing is just falling right out of bed. That's an amazing trade.
It's interesting, though. They're punishing stocks that aren't performing really badly, and the stocks that are doing well are up, but they're not up near what they're punishing these stocks on.
Yeah, I mean, this Yelp 30% crushing. He had, and Tom, the way Tom looks at trades, he was looking at some call spreads, and Tom can correct me if I'm wrong on this, but it didn't work out. Stock market moved lower, but so it was like a 14-cent investment or a 40-cent investment. If it moves higher, it has a very high payout ratio, and if it moves lower, it's a defined loss, and you move on.
That's what makes Mac amazing. He can come up with these trades that basically the risk reward is skewed in his favor, and he knows his risk, and he's completely under control. So it's pretty impressive. That's that's it from the perch here. Unless Vince, you have any closing thoughts? I'm worried about you going to work for the Swiss government over the weekend. But if you haven't
going, look, I'm no former U.S. banker. You start at the Swiss government, and then you become a trader in the U.S., and then you work at the U.S. government. I'm on the path, Larry. It takes years to do this. I'm on a mission, but yeah, it's neutral. It's neutral. I can live there. In terms of comments, I had a very nice active signal that ran away from us in gold, kiss it goodbye, bearish technically, and then got a signal to sell this morning. But unfortunately, to my system, not able to sell until the end of the day. Risk reward won't present, but hopefully, if you're an active trader, you had a nice little play. Gold gives you a play a day, maybe a play a week, and we just had it. Just looking at some indices for what it's worth, because I'll say something in an attempt to elicit a response from you. The dollars, look, this PPI comes out, the dollar's stronger. Powell's a man of his word. Welcome to fundamentals. And the tallest pygmy, once again, no offense to people that are not 7 feet tall, is stocks. They are lower, right? A little bit lower, but not annihilated. If you had to trade, and I know you don't have to trade, would you be a buyer of a dip, or would you be a buyer of strength off a dip? And conversely, how would you feel if we rally going into the early beginning or end of day? Timing matters on a Friday, I guess, right?
I just want to play it by ear and just watch the tape. I
hear you.
Oil just popped. It was back in the 60 handle, so it doesn't have a 5 in front of it anymore. And we like that trade. It's just it's really it's been disheartening. and then we're gonna have to put a hedge on the downside going into the meeting this weekend, and that's it really. I don't see much other than that. SPOOs are basically, since we've been in the air, been in a $2 range. I think volatility is, it says 17, but it's really like yesterday felt closed and today feels closed. So.
One final comment. I think it was on Tuesday or Wednesday we sent out a Survey Monkey survey asking for feedback on the Opportunistic Trader. I think it's going to resend to people that did not fill out. Just a reminder. We'd really appreciate it if you could take 2 minutes to just fill it out. It just helps improve the product, lets us know what you're thinking, how we can improve, things of that nature, what you like, what you don't like, what you want to see more of. So it takes no more than 2 minutes. It should be in your inbox. It should have came Tuesday or Wednesday around 11 a.m. Eastern time. And so it might have gone to junk, but if you could fill it out, if you get that, that would be greatly appreciated. And I guess we'll be back to you, Larrabee, on after the open. We're going to have Phil Flynn around 10:15, and then I'm working on some crypto to talk crypto just casually.
I want to talk crypto. I mean, it's funny. Every time crypto rallies a little bit, I get calls from my crypto crazies out there, and I get texts from friends of mine. Oh, you got to look at this coin and that coin, and I'm like, dude, that game ended, and they've all settled back in. I'm not getting any calls or any texts, so it's interesting. I had lunch with a guy. I don't know. This is probably about a little over a year ago, and he was buying Bitcoin. Maybe it was under a year ago at like 1,500, 1,600, and he's like, this. He was saying it was going to go. He didn't know anything about it. He's not even in the business. He said it was going to 100,000. I said, why did you pick that number? He goes, oh, it just sounds good. I'm like, that's the market that we had. It's amazing though, actually, if you really look at it and think about it, how it's based here. The market, has completely, it just sits. I mean, we got to get the guy on, Mike, because I don't understand it. I don't know how it's sitting here. I don't know how it doesn't move, 50 points on a $6,000 instrument in a day, and it trades no volume. So what is going on? We got to find the answer.
If I could just throw something in, I'm going to throw my hat in the ring for future conversations. I'm not going to talk about it now, but as a market structure person, I feel very comfortable talking about Bitcoin from before listing to current futures listing, and what they're trying to do with the product. And in layman's terms, Mike, if you put something together, I'd be happy to join as a layman talker. Not on if I'm bullish or bearish, but I had to pay close attention to it because it was viewed as a potential
that was a replacement
for gold. But the reality is, it is the new gold. It's gone from being a currency, meaning a transfer of wealth, a transfer or transitionary product, to they wanted, let's put it this way, they, and I mean they, wanted to regulate it. And by putting it in a futures market, you could profit from it as a brokerage firm, as any good capitalist firm would. And at the same time, you could regulate it and prevent people from getting ripped off. And finally, the listing of any OTC product on a transparent platform shows price and eventually reduces volatility. Is it never going to move again? I'm not going to say that, but I'm going to say listing a product in and of itself based on market structure reduces volatility and makes it a store of wealth. So now it's going to become marketed in a way like that. That's my opinion. I'd be happy to talk about it in more length and more sense. I've written on it many times. Not to get off of that, because I just want to shout out, because Tom McEntee threw something out. He put a position on. People should have possibly Disney on their radar today. Tom has a put spread on. Disney's currently trading 116. He's got something, a bearish put spread on that might be worth looking at. Tom's trades aren't usually just for one day. They're very dynamic. Maybe there's an earnings. It's post earnings. And John Hassinger is looking at options and I'm sure he thanked you for answering him on that, Larry. On the straddle seemed too cheap to do anything with,
Yeah.
at least on the sell side. So
All right.
just
All
want to
right,
make
we'll
sure
be
I
back to
noted Tom's
everybody
trade.
after the open, and then Phil Flynn after that. Thanks. Talk to everybody soon.
All right. Bye, guys.